Hey, welcome to the channel ran by the guy who has no idea what he's doing, and welcome back to part 6 of the Doomsday Iceberg. As always, thank you Mighty Bull for helping with the research, and also if you're not into the idea of thinking about possible ways the world can end, I'd recommend watching something else. But if not, thank you so much for watching, and let's talk about the end of times. First up, we have the Kinetic Orbital Strike, which are a hypothetical attack on a planetary surface with an inert projectile from space, with the actual damage on the planet's surface being caused by the kinetic force of said object hitting the ground. If that sounds confusing, it's basically a giant railgun fired from space. If you don't know what a railgun is, it's basically a gun that shoots a giant, metal rod. This is actually kind of a common thing in sci-fi. A few examples of it are the main cannons on UNSC ships and Halo. And also just kind of think of the Death Star if instead of firing a giant laser, it fired a giant piece of rebar. While this is mostly a thing in science fiction, some modern militaries do have very early versions of a railgun, but they're really expensive to build and maintain. And as of now, can only be fired from naval vessels. So unless you're in a country getting blitzkrieged by an uber modern military, this isn't really something to be that worried about. Don't fret this thing. Moving from something a little militaristic to something that would just kind of suck, we have the extinction of the Y chromosome in the human race. If you don't know, the Y chromosome is what determines whether you'll be a boy or a girl. While in utero, the presence of the gene in the last pair of chromosomes mixing with an X chromosome will form the XY chromosome and cause development of male reproductive organs. Whereas if the gene isn't present and the XX chromosome forms, the female reproductive organs will develop. Bear in mind, there is an actual disease called Turner syndrome where instead of having an XY chromosome or XX chromosome, it's just a singular X is developed, resulting in a girl, but is often comes with a bunch of birth defects like diabetes, high blood pressure, scoliosis, and even heart disease as an adult. And they won't develop properly in that birds and beasts sense, if you catch my drift. But I want to focus on the stopping of the XY from being produced, which would result in males no longer being born, which naturally would cause humans to no longer be able to reproduce because you need both to make a baby. So over a long, painful time span, we would all die out unless the surviving women are able to rapidly evolve into an Asari-type people, or the Amazonians from Futurama, and survive however they do it. Or more realistically, we create Y chromosomes in a lab. This has been fun to talk about. Moving on, we have Glycy 710. A rogue star that is believed to pass by our sun anywhere between the next 1 to 15 million years. Scientists who have been looking into this say Glycy will pass nowhere near our orbit or do anything to our gravitation to the sun. In fact, worst case scenario, if they're right, is it would cause a bunch of comets from the Oort cloud to fly around the solar system. And that's basically just like this giant cluster of rocks in space circling on the outer rim. Unfortunately, if it does pass close enough, we're not going to get the cool Tatooine effect of two suns. We'd more than likely just burn alive. And no one wants that. GM crops, or genetically modified crops, are plants altered in a lab to be improved for farming, giving them benefits such as being resistant to things like pesticides and insects. These modifications are used for just about everything from cotton to corn to even tobacco. The big downside to these is since these crop seeds are developed in a lab, you could have an evil mustache trolling company that makes the plants grow with ricin or some other kind of poison naturally developed inside of them. I also found some information about potentially asexual reproducing corn, which I didn't know corn got jiggy with it. Either way, you mix asexual corn with something like a biotech disaster from layer 2, and the next thing you know, everything in our world will be on a cob, and corn will take over as the dominant species. And no one wants that. That's Don't let that happen. Up next, without making myself sound too stupid, giant molecular clouds are just big-ass clouds full of gas hanging out around our galaxy, typically spanning a few hundred parsecs in diameter. Scientists estimate these big gassy boys are full of a little chemical known as ammonia, which, if you don't know, is a key ingredient in bleach. And I think we all know what happens when you smell or drink that. If one of these big clouds manages to form or cross into our solar system, it's safe to say we would all die from breathing in the toxic fumes unless we were somehow able to crack open that Disney nuclear bunker full of those creepy masks from the 50s and find a way to safely eat and drink anything that is most likely contaminated by said gas. Which I don't think we would be able to do. We'd be living like those people on the ships from Mass Effect. I can't remember what they're called. Rolling it back, we're going to talk about some more wild, literally Lovecraftian ideas. We have Cthulhu Armageddon. If you don't know, Cthulhu is a giant tentacle monster from another dimension created by author H.P. Lovecraft. Within the Necronomicon, an in-universe book for Lovecraft stories, it is said Cthulhu is one of the old elder gods, said to come to our plane of existence and rule with a bunch of pain and torture by several of his crazy demonic creatures, most of which are often described as being so incomprehensibly terrifying that just the mere sight of them will cause you to drop dead. In terms of an Armageddon related to Cthulhu, the best I could find is a book by C.T. Phillips, set 100 years after the big tentacle man takes over the world. If you're really into cosmic or old prophecies causing horror, or anything like that, and for some reason you haven't checked out Lovecraft's work, I'd recommend you take a look at his stories. A lot of them can be found as audiobooks here on YouTube, and if you have been turned into movies, with the most recent being Color Out of Space, starring everyone's favorite crazy treasure hunter, Nicolas Cage. Just whatever you do, don't look up the name of Lovecraft's cat. Trust me, just don't do that. Heaven's Gate was a cult of 41 members who would eventually go and commit mass suicide in 1997, believing an alien UFO was going to pass by Earth to pick them up using a passing comet as cover. And said UFO would then take them to a higher plane of existence. You may remember them as the cult who, when they all died, they were wearing matching tracksuits and Nikes. They had like $5 in change in all their pockets too, for whatever reason. I guess there's a space toll. Space tolls are a thing. They actually had some really weird beliefs, like they thought Jesus was possessed by an alien when he was like 30, who was sent to educate humans and prepare their souls so that if you left all your worldly belongings behind to follow and accept him and spread the word, you would be accepted into the Father's kingdom, which was just the higher plane of existence amongst aliens that they all thought the comet was going to take them to. Even going through their website, which is still active for some reason, I couldn't actually find any kind of doomsday prophecy. Their cult was a heavily twisted version of the Bible, and they didn't even mention the book of Revelations. I couldn't find anything within their own documents, their own preachings. Hell, even in their, I guess you could call it, mass suicide press release saying that this is what they did. Even in that, they didn't talk about like the world ending. It was just about we're going to a higher plane. But if I had to take a wild guess, these people were the type to believe in Y2K. I would not put it past any of them. And our last entry of the day is the Blood Moon Prophecies, which are a series of prophecies in the Bible which, according to Christian preachers John Hagee and Mark Blitz, state that a tetrad, which is a series of 4 consecutive lunar eclipses that coincided with Jewish holidays, having 6 full moons in between, and no intervening partial lunar eclipses, then that is a lot to have in order to happen, would spell the beginning of the end of times. These preachers use the basis of the Bible is specifically in the book of Joel, Acts 2:20, and Revelation 6:12. Now, the last tetrad was in April of 2014, and it ended with a lunar eclipse on September 27th through the 28th of 2015. I mean, this happened like 6 years ago. I'd say we're okay for the most part. Plus, this same extremely circumstantial chain of eclipses happened like 70 times since 1 AD, and nothing has happened. So yeah. I mean, the flashpoint of Harambe dying did happen after the last one, but I think that's just a coincidence. There's no way those two are linked. And that's going to do it for today's video. It's kind of a short one as a smaller tier. If you like the video, like it, leave a comment, subscribe, all that cool stuff would be really cool. You can check me out at Twitter. I occasionally put stuff there. And for everyone who's been coming back and watching and leaving like really nice stuff in the comments, I just want to say I really appreciate it. It does make my day seeing that, you know, you guys are liking the content. You guys are like listening to me ramble about just different stuff. Unfortunately, there's gonna be a bit of a slowdown in content for a bit. I'm not like just full stop like ending the channel or anything, because I do enjoy doing this, but I am moving cross country here soon, so content's gonna slow down for a little bit until I get myself resituated and all that is said and done. I have a few videos I am working on. They're mostly just written out right now. I haven't recorded anything, but I'm hoping to get maybe 1 or 2 of those done before I leave. At the very least, record it so I can just pull archived like so I can just pull like an archive of gameplay that I have and slap it on there. It'll probably be a little bit low effort, but that's just the case. Again, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Bye bye. I love you.
I don't need a hit from you no more. I got no